The book I'll be doing for my book video is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. To Kill a Mockingbird is about a young girl, Scout, and her experience growing up in a small Alabama town. She and her older brother, Jem, make friends with Dill, who visits during the summer, and together they act out the legend of why their neighbor, Arthur Boo Radley, never leaves the house. Later, it's revealed that Scout and Jem's father, Atticus, has been chosen to represent Tom Robinson, a black man accused of raping Mayelle Ewell in court, which causes large amounts of backlash in their small town. And Atticus presents a fantastic and thrilling defense, but Tom still goes to jail. Later, he's shot in the back. At the end, Scout and Jem are assaulted walking home from a Halloween celebration by Bob Ewell, Mayelle's father, who was embarrassed in court by Atticus, and the whole town was basically told he beats his children. Boo Radley saves them, and Jem breaks his arm, and that's the end. So, what do I like about this book? I really like the way Lee writes from the perspective of a child. One of the biggest current critiques of the book is that it has a white savior narrative with Atticus, and I don't want to disagree, but I think that the way Scout sees Atticus makes him seem better than he actually is. Another element I really like is that it's more character-based than plot-based, because it gives Lee an opportunity to really elaborate on the specifics of each character and make them memorable, from Miss Maudie to Boo Radley. Additionally, I think the book is still relevant today with mockingbirds. People who have done nothing wrong continuing to be hurt. I also really like the feminism and Scout's discovery of what being a lady means for her. One example of this is on pages 271 and 72. And Atticus has just come and told his sister, Aunt Alexandra, and Miss Maudie, who lives across the street from them, that Tom Robinson has been shot. But they're in the middle of this party with all of these women who were not very supportive of Atticus defending Tom Robinson. And Aunt Alexandra and Miss Maudie and Scout go into the kitchen for a moment and sort of regroup themselves, and then this is what happens. And so they went down the row of laughing women around the dining room, refilling coffee cups, dishing out goodies as though their only regret was the temporary domestic disaster of losing Calpurnia. With my very best company manners, I asked Mrs. Merriweather if she would have some cookies. After all, if Auntie could be a lady at a time like this, so could I. And that scene is very representative of Scout sort of coming into herself and discovering that a lady doesn't always have to wear skirts and be perfect, but it can be exactly what was shown in that scene, and being polite and putting on an air as if, nothing's wrong and etc. So two of my favorite passages from the book. First is on page 229, and Mr. Dolphus Raymond, who lives on the outskirts of town and has fathered multiple children with a black woman, and pretends to drink whiskey out of a sack, but in reality it's just Coca-Cola, and he offers that Coca-Cola to Dill to settle his stomach. In the middle of, they have to leave the courtroom during the case because he's not feeling well. In this passage on page 229, he explains to Scout, Dill, and Jem why he does what he does. So he says, yes, you mean why do I pretend? Well, it's very simple, he said. Some folks don't like the way I live. Now, I could say the hell with them. I don't care if they don't like it. I do say I don't care if they don't like it right enough, but I don't say the hell with them, see? Dill and I said, no, sir. I try and give them a reason, you see. It helps folks if they can latch on to a reason. When I come to town, which is seldom, if I weave a little and drink out of this sack, folks can say that Dolphus Raymond's in the clutches of whiskey. That's why he won't change his ways. He can't help himself. That's why he lives the way he does. This is one of my favorite passages because it reveals another part of life and their town to the kids, showing them other lives. It's also another example of Lee's characterization and how she creates real, unperfect characters with difficult backstories and motivations like Dolphus Raymond. So another one of my favorite passages is on page 260, and Scout and Jem are talking about different types of people, specifically in Macomb County where they live. There are people like the Ewells and people like the Cunninghams who are poor but won't take anything from anyone. Scout says, "Nah, Jem, I think there's just one kind of folks. And Jem gets really frustrated and he says, "That's what I thought too," he said at last, "when I was your age. If there's just one kind of folks, why can't they get along with each other? If they're all alike, why do they go out of their way to despise each other? Scout, I think I'm beginning to understand something. I think I'm beginning to understand why Boo Radley stayed shut up inside the house all this time. It's because he wants to stay inside." This passage, shows the differences between Scout and Jem, both in personality and age. Despite To Kill a Mockingbird being told by Scout, it is just as much as Jem's coming-of-age story, and his loss of innocence. Although this passage is sad, it also shows the changes in Jem's character and growth and struggles with how humans perceive each other. This is one of my favorite passages because it's a feeling felt often today, nearly 100 years after this book was set. So finally, what does this book teach you? To Kill a Mockingbird teaches you that sometimes a child has a better view of the world and justice than many adults and can bring a unique perspective. It also reinforces the idea of stepping into someone else's shoes, or skin, as Atticus states, and the good that can come from understanding a person more. To Kill a Mockingbird is a story of justice, but it's also a story of growth, and how difficult situations can come to new ideas, and as you get older, you learn more about the world. But also that a child's perspective is beautiful. So even if you are learning more as you grow old, it's important to still remember that things don't have to be that complicated, and you can still keep that childlike element to your beliefs and your thoughts. So that's it. That was my book presentation on To Kill a Mockingbird. Bye!